welcome back for another Kemetic Bite. I'm your host, Sharon, and we've really become something of our own little community over the last few months, and, that's been great, but, I wanted to talk about a few things within that community. So I'm going to start with some updates specifically for my Patreon peeps. The way it's been working the last few months is I tend to post new content towards the end of the month. So over the course of the month I'm working on things, and I'll put something for like my dollar subscribers. I'll put some kind of a extra for you, like a picture or something fun that I've written. This past month I put the pattern up, and it's just something so that everybody gets a neat little something when they're part of the Patreon community. And of course, $5 you get to see all the outtakes and the silly things that I say when I'm flubbing, or things that Darren will say, and some other stuff from another special that we worked on a little bit over the summer, and that's for our top tier folks, which would be $25. And that is a separate series that we decided to call KSH Coffeehouse. The way it works is just sort of lightning round questions. We have our friend Morgan, who you might remember from our Let's Play Senate and our reaction videos, and he'll just ask questions, and sometimes Darren will ask questions, and I try to answer them as best I can. And we kind of go into some weird places. We're going to try that for a few times and see how that works, but that's going to be something exclusive for, the top tier folks. And, if I get some good feedback from it, we'll keep it going, but we just have to see. September was a busy month because we were dealing with cleaning up our yard after a hurricane, for one thing. I was also working on stuff for the video that we saw recently, but also I didn't realize that I was not getting some messages from Patreon. And when I figured this out at the end of the month, it was a little late. There was someone who had been waiting on me and got rather upset, and I had to go in and change a lot of email settings. I still had permissions for MySpace? Huh? Obviously I've fixed that now that I've figured out what the issue was, and I'm able to get messages from people from Patreon much faster now. But for those of you who feel like you weren't getting through to me, I'm really sorry that that happened, and it's never my intention to leave anyone hanging for that long. Things just get kind of chaotic and busy around here, and life has been kind of chaotic for everyone. I'm hoping that sometime in a few years from now, some new YouTube viewer is going to be watching these videos and go, oh yeah, that was when that whole COVID thing was going on. We're past that. We all look forward to that day, right? But in the meantime, I just ask, please be a little patient with me, and I promise I will return in kind everything that I can. Also, I noticed that the funerals video stirred up a little bit of controversy of a couple of different kinds. And one part of it was good, I'll talk about that in a minute, but one part of it I had no intention of. The comment that I made about the upper echelons of Egyptian society and their modern parallels struck the wrong chord for some folks, and that was not my intention. The comment that I made was missing a little bit of context, because when I said that, I was thinking of some folks locally, that one of whom I've met, and to kind of just cover in, broad strokes, there's one gentleman from our area who is a doctor and owns several Subway restaurants and a landscaping business, and he's a member of the U.S. House of Representatives, and he made some comments that were so gauche and so tone-deaf recently that our friend Morgan, his family is boycotting their Subway restaurants. So that's one person that I had in mind. The other one, who Darren and I have met, also owns a little cookie shop and probably some other places in town, is a member of the State House of Representatives, and he's shown up at some events that Darren and I have been at to try to advocate for disability rights, and he has a nasty habit of, or he did until he lost re-election, he had a nasty habit of smiling in our faces and then going and voting against us when he got to the state capitol. And not only that, when he was talking with Darren and I at one point, he turns to Darren, gestures to me, and says, "See, a lot of our problems started when we gave them the vote." That's somebody who really deserves the label that I gave them when I was talking about well-to-do folks and the perks that they would have gotten. But not having that context when I was talking about it, you're missing that, and so it could easily have been seen as a personal dig, and that's not what it was meant at, or meant as. And so for that, I'm sorry if anybody took that personally, because it was not meant to be. However, I also noticed that it stirred some comments, and one or two of them were really out of step. And so, guys, I took those off, because it doesn't matter how right your intentions are, or the cause that you're trying to support, you know, social justice, income equality, so on and so forth. That can be a grand idea, but if you get personal and you use tactics that are less than noble, then your cause is no longer justified. You've lost, because if you can't carry yourself with just actions, carry yourself using ma'at as we understand it, then you're not helping yourself. So please, don't get personal with each other in the comments. Concentrate on the fact that all of us are here together because we share a common interest in the ancient Egyptian religion in its modern context, Egyptian paganism, and, you know, actually I know there's some folks that aren't Egyptian pagan but just love the videos because, you know, they're wanting to learn about ancient Egypt, you know, period. So that's something that we all have in common, and we should concentrate on that, not on our differences, be they socioeconomic class, you know, gender, ethnicity, orientation, you know. There are plenty of forces out there in the world that seek to divide us, but this is something that we share in common. It's common ground, and if it's important to us, then we need to make that the first thing that we see when we, you know, interact with other folks. I will admit, I kind of made the assumption, because there are so many folks who are Egyptian pagan that I help and that I interact with, who, you know, are on disability or, you know, things like that, that's most of what we are. Well, some viewer feedback challenged that assumption for me. And I hope that it would challenge that assumption for the rest of us too. And something to keep in mind, if you're familiar with the Temple of Sekhmet in Cactus Springs, Nevada, that was founded by a lady named Genevieve Vaughn, who was born into a well-to-do family, became a philanthropist, and she had the temple built and dedicated to Sekhmet as thanks for her daughter. You can go and read it on their website. You know, there could be another person like that to come along, and if they see other Egyptian pagans as, you know, being rude to each other and rude to newcomers, then, you know, they're not going to, you know, want to be a part of that. So that's why we need to, you know, be more welcoming and, you know, hospitable. You know, remember, may we always offer charity and hospitality. That means also interacting with people online. And it's so easy online to say whatever you're thinking and think there's no one on the other side of that screen. This is something that goes back to the early days of the internet. Trust me, I lived that back in the days of Usenet. You know, but there's always a person at the other end of that keyboard, at the other end of that phone screen. You know, so treat them as people. That being said, another aspect of the funerals discussion, and, you know, this is something that, you know, it's, you know, it makes sense that it would touch a lot of things in people, but something that was kind of, I think, see it as a good bit of controversy. There were people who were saying, well, if you want to stay true to Egyptian religion, then you would never want to cremate someone. And there were others who were saying, well, there's so many reasons now why, you shouldn't have to. You know what? That kind of debate is not unique to us. Funny thing, Darren's dad wanted to be cremated. Well, he was Catholic, and Catholics don't believe in cremation, generally speaking, if you're going by the book. Same thing with Muslims, and I believe the same thing with Jewish faith. So, Egyptian religion is right in line with the rest of them. But you have folks within it that also would say, you know what, I don't see what's wrong with it. I would rather be cremated for any number of reasons. In Darren's dad's case, it was because he was a bit of a vagabond, a gypsy kind of spirit. He was a truck driver, for a lot of his adult life. And he didn't like being tied down into one place, at least in that sense. He stayed in Lake Charles where he, grew up for a lot of his life, but he, had that free spirit, and so he didn't want to be, planted in one spot, as it were. And that's a personal decision. The funny thing about a lot of these arguments that, are gridlocked like that, they are that way because you've got valid reasons on either side. And ultimately it comes down to just a personal decision of what you would rather do. And, we could name any number of, hot button issues out there right now that I think a lot of them are, there's valid reasons on either side, but the ultimate choice has got to be personal. And we should leave it as something personal so people can choose which way they want to go. Okay, coming up, we've already covered headdresses. Next I'm going to talk about priestly garb. And actually talking about Egyptian garb, period, would be, a great topic. We can cover, all sorts of things. Now, I did talk about some of that in a previous video. If you go and you look through, it's a few years old by now, but we're going to talk specifically about the priestly garb, because that's one of the things that's in ancient Egyptian magic, and I have a lot to say about that. So look for that at the end of this month. After that, we're going to talk about the Greek magical papyri in continuing our discussion on Egyptian magic. And so for those of you who've been wanting to know about Hika, look forward to this. That'll be in November. In the meantime, we still are doing live services every Friday. Generally, we do them at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. That's, what seems to work best for us. And I know there are some folks that can't tune in at that time, but, it's going to be available where you can watch it later. And there's been talk about doing kind of like just a live chat. And probably going to end up doing that on Discord. I am not on Discord yet, but I will let you know as soon as I'm on. I got a list of things to do that's like a mile long, and that's one of the things on there. But in the meantime, I have more things to tape for you guys, and I look forward to seeing you either in a live service or in our next video. So please stay well out there, stay safe. There's still a pandemic going on, and it's probably going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. So just hang in there, guys, and know that you're loved, and I will see you soon. In the meantime, Sanibti.
Do you have a question about Egyptian paganism? Share it in the comments section, and it could be the topic of the next Kemetic Bite. Don't forget to subscribe, and join me on Patreon for more videos, outtakes, and exclusives.